Hey guys, so welcome back to our tutorials. In today's tutorial, we're going to create this card. So it's a promo card. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is to link the CSS file. So just write link style sheet and then the href points to style.css, which corresponds to this style.css file. So also let's add the default styles. So we're just going to do a margin of 0, padding of 0, and a box sizing of border box. So these are just basic starter CSS code. The first thing, you just remove the margins on all the elements, the paddings, specify the box sizing as border box. So this one is commonly used to make sure that if you give an element a width, then the width is inclusive of its paddings and its margins. Right, so in the body, let's start by creating a div with a class of card. And then inside the card, we're just going to have image. So this is the image. So if you need this exact image, you can always go to my GitHub repository. So github.com/techwithtwin/tiktok-projects. And then look for a project called promo code. So promo card. So then you can see the image here, which is written as rocket.png. So I'm just going to drag that image, and that's the image you're looking at. So in our HTML, we're just going to reference that image, and then that's it for the image section. The next thing I'm going to add is this heading. So this is a heading level 3. You can use a heading level 3 and say ready to start, just like that. And then the next thing you can see here is a paragraph. So we're just going to create a paragraph, and then I'm just going to copy this, then paste it. And then the next thing we can see here is the button. So just going to create a button, and then it says get pro for 50%, or maybe at 50% off, maybe something of that sort. So that's the button. And then we get to this section here. So you can see this is like a summary section. So you just create a div with a class of summary. And then inside the summary, what you can see, we have another heading and another description or subheading. So now I'm going to go a step down. So we started with the heading level 3. We're just going to go to heading level 4. So special promotion price. And then the next thing you can see there is the paragraph. This is the paragraph. So let's copy this paragraph. And then we paste it, and then there is a break line character here that breaks these lines into 2. So after annually, you're just going to add something called break. So like that. And then that's all on the HTML. There's nothing new in the HTML. So we can go live and see what we have. So what we have now is just, you can see everything. So what I'm going to do first is to resize. I'm going to resize this image. So I'm just going to resize it on the HTML. So in the HTML, I'm just going to add a width of maybe 170. And then you can see it now, it looks nice. So the very next step is to add this background color. So I'm just going back to my styles, and then let's grab the body, and then background color of hash 1519 1e. So that's the background color we are dealing with. And then you can see nothing is now visible. Then let's focus on the card. Let's give the card this color. background color. So just do the card, we grab the card, then background color on the card should be hash 3D42 for A. So if you go back, you can now see the card has some background colors. And then let's make sure the color is white. So you can say color of white. Right, now you can see it. The next thing is to restrict the width of this card. You can see now it is taking the full width, but we can restrict its width to maybe 400 pixels. Then you can see the width has been restricted. The next thing is to place this card here in the middle. We're just going to do that by going to the parent. The parent is the body. The body is the one that holds the card. And then we can use Flexbox to display the content in the middle. We could alternatively do this margin. So margin, you can add two values for the margin vertical and for the margin horizontal. So the margin vertical, we're just going to do 0. And then horizontal, we can say auto. This one now places the card in the middle because it calculates the width and then places the element in the middle, and then the margin is auto on both ends. You could use this or you could use Flexbox. So let's first focus on that. The next thing is that you can see the card is too close to the edges. So you're just going to add some padding and say padding to RAM on the body. Now you can see our card looks nice. The next thing in the card you can realize is that these elements are too close to each other. We need to add some spaces between these elements. We can do that using Flexbox. So I'm just going to use Flexbox. So on the card, we can do display flex. Then flex direction should be column. And then now here we can add a gap. So you can say gap of maybe 0.9 rem. Now you can see there are some gaps between the elements. The next thing you might realize is that this card, the edges are too sharp. So we can add some border radius of maybe 5 pixels. All right. The next thing you might realize is that this section, this content is too close to the card edges. So we can add some paddings to the card itself. So we said padding is the space between the element and its outside walls. Okay. Yeah. So we can just go here and add some padding of 1.5 rem. All right. So you can see now things have started to look nice. So the next thing we are going to do is to make sure this content is in the middle. But since we used Flexbox, we can add a property called align items to the center. And then the elements go to the center. So what you can realize is that the text doesn't go to the center. Why? Because for the text, you need to text align the center, the text itself. We have different ways. So you can align to the center, the end. You can see it goes to the end, and then start, which is the default, and then center. All right. So something else you might realize is that this font differs from the font we have. So let's go to fonts.google.com and then look for a font called Inter. So you can just search here Inter. Then click get embed code here on the bottom. And then get embed code and then go to the import and then copy this import link. Paste it in your CSS file on the top. Just like that. And then in the body, come and specify that the font family is Inter. Then as a fallback, we use sans serif. So the fallback kicks in whenever the browser is maybe we are offline or something is wrong. We can't reach the fonts.google. So we can go to the fallback of sans serif. And then where did I get this font family? It's right here. So this is the font family. You can see Inter. And then yeah, so that's the font family. And also in Google Fonts, it will tell you the kind of font family you can just paste. All right. So the next thing you can see now, this one looks nice now. The next thing is that now let's reduce the sizes of the paragraph. So I'm just going to grab all the paragraphs. So every p element and then add a font size of 0.75 rem. So we can see we reduce the size. Something else you might realize is that now the summary, remember we're adding the summary. So the summary has its own background color. So let's grab the summary. So let's grab the summary. So we can say summary. And how did we get the summary? We gave this summary a class of summary. So just grab it using its class, and then we can do the background color here of hash 1D 222C. So if we go back, you can see it added there. But now we still get the same issue whereby there is no enough gap between the elements. So we can use flexbox to add the gap. So we can say display flex direction of column. And then here we can add a gap of 0.5 rem. Then the gap is added. So the same issue occurs whereby the content is too close to the summary edges. So we can add the padding. So we can add padding of maybe 0.9 rem. So you can see the padding now looks a bit nice. The next thing is that we need some spaces between the summary and the other content. So what we could do is that we could use flexbox gap, but now we have so many children, we don't want to add gaps between all these. So we can individually add the gap by doing margin top of 0.5 rem. So we added some margin tops and then that looks nice. So, or maybe you can go to a padding of 1 rem. Okay, so the final thing we can work on now is this button. So we just grab the button. We only have one button, so I can just grab it using its tag name. So I can do button, background color of white. It's already white, but it's good to specify because if maybe someone is using dark mode, then some issues will arise. And the next thing you might realize is that this button, the text is too close to the button edges. So you're just going to add some paddings. Then you can say padding, maybe we are going to add individual padding for the vertical and horizontal. So vertical 8 pixels, horizontal 12 pixels. And then what you might realize is that just that this is not visible is that there are some ugly borders around the button. So you can say border and then you can see the borders are too sharp, the border radiuses, the corners. So you can add some border radius of 5 pixels. You can see it now. And then let's also specify the color. So you can specify the color of black. So yeah, that's it guys. You can see we arrived at the solution and it's almost similar. So that's it. Thank you for watching and make sure you like, follow and share with your friends. Thank you.